My name is Sophia Miller, and I'm 28 years old. Imagine sitting in a warm family dining room on a Sunday evening, surrounded by your parents, aunts, and cousins. The smell of roasted chicken and garlic bread fills the air. Everyone is laughing, talking about their lives, until suddenly your own parents, the two people who raised you, the people you thought you could trust the most, look you straight in the eye and say, "Sophia, you're going to pay for our retirement. It's your duty." At first, I thought they were joking. The laughter in the room froze. My fork clattered against my plate. My cousins glanced at each other awkwardly, and my aunt shifted uncomfortably in her chair. My mother smiled sweetly, but there was a sharpness in her eyes. My father leaned back, his voice calm but firm. "We sacrificed everything for you, Sophia. Now it's your turn to take care of us." My chest tightened and my stomach sank. I had worked for years to build my career. I wasn't rich, far from it, but I finally had some savings, and I was hoping to buy my first apartment. Their words hit me like a slap. I could feel the blood rushing to my ears. Before I dive deeper into what happened next, let me pause. If you want to see how this story unfolds, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more unbelievable family drama stories. Now, back to that night. I forced a laugh, trying to lighten the mood. "You're kidding, right?" I asked, but my mom's smile faded. "We're not joking. We're serious. You're our only child. Who else is going to look after us?" I could feel every eye in the room on me. My cousins looked away, pretending to check their phones. The silence was suffocating. "I'll always help you," I said cautiously. "But unfund your entire retirement? That's impossible. I'm barely keeping up with my own bills." My father's voice hardened. "That's not our problem, Sophia. We raised you, gave you everything. Now it's time for you to give back. You're selfish if you think otherwise." The word selfish cut deep. I had spent my entire life trying to make them proud, excelling in school, working long hours, paying for things even when they didn't ask. And now they were demanding more. After dinner, when everyone had left, they cornered me in the living room. My mom's tone turned sharp. "You don't understand, Sophia. We didn't save money. We thought you would handle it. It's your responsibility." My knees went weak. "Wait, you didn't save anything? Not a single plan for retirement?" They shook their heads. My dad actually looked offended by the question. "We didn't need to," he said flatly. "We invested in you. That was our retirement plan." The words hit me harder than I can describe. I wasn't a person to them anymore. I was an investment. And now they expected the return. I went home that night feeling sick. My mind was spinning. I thought about all the years I had spent skipping vacations, working overtime, saving bit by bit. I had dreams of a home, of freedom, of building a life I could be proud of. And in one dinner, my parents had shattered it. Over the next week, the pressure grew. They called me daily. My mom sent me guilt-ridden messages. "Do you want us to end up on the street? After everything we did for you?" My dad was harsher. "You owe us. Don't forget who fed you, who clothed you." I tried to ignore it, but the anxiety ate at me. I couldn't focus at work. At night, I lay awake wondering, was I a terrible daughter? Was I selfish for wanting to keep the money I earned? Finally, one evening, they showed up at my apartment unannounced. They sat on my couch, their arms crossed, their faces stern. "You're going to do this," my dad said, "or we'll make sure everyone knows how ungrateful you are. We'll tell the family. We'll tell your friends. Do you really want people to see you as the daughter who abandoned her parents?" That was the moment it stopped being a request. It became a threat. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. I sat frozen on the couch as my parents stared at me. Their expressions hardened into something I barely recognized. For years, they had been demanding and critical, yes, but I had always brushed it off as just how they were. But now they looked like strangers. "Dad," I said, my voice shaking, "you can't just threaten me like this. I've worked hard for my money. It's not fair for you to demand all of it." My mother leaned forward, her voice deceptively soft. "Fair? Was it fair that I carried you for 9 months, worked 2 jobs while raising you, sacrificed everything I wanted? Was it fair that your father worked overtime for years to put food on the table? You're standing here today because of us, Sophia. Don't you dare talk about fairness." Her words dug into me like claws. Guilt rushed over me, hot and suffocating. For a split second, I felt small again. The obedient daughter who always tried to please them, who always gave in. But then anger sparked in my chest. I took a deep breath and steadied myself. "I didn't ask you to give up your lives for me," I said firmly. "I never asked to be born. That was your choice, not mine. I appreciate everything you did, but it doesn't mean you get to control my future." My father slammed his hand on the arm of the couch. The sound echoed through my apartment, making me jump. "You ungrateful brat," he roared. "We should have known. All those years we poured money into you. And this is the thanks we get. Selfishness?" My mother added quickly, her eyes glinting with a strange satisfaction. "Don't worry, dear. We'll make sure everyone knows. Aunt Carol, Uncle James, your cousins, they'll all hear about how you refuse to take care of your own parents. Let's see how you enjoy being labeled a selfish, cold-hearted daughter." The words sliced through me. My family's approval had always mattered, even if it shouldn't have. I imagined the whispers, the judgmental stares at family gatherings, the reputation of being the bad daughter. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Go ahead and tell them. But deep down, you and I both know the truth. You didn't save because you chose not to. And now you want me to clean up your mess." For the first time, I saw something flicker in their eyes. Fear. Not much, but enough. They stormed out of my apartment, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. I collapsed on the couch, my body trembling. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. The next week was hell. My parents followed through on their threats. I started getting calls from relatives, some sympathetic, others cold. "How could you do this to your parents?" Aunt Carol scolded. "They gave up everything for you, Sophia. And you won't even make sure they're comfortable in retirement?" I tried to explain, but she didn't want to listen. To her, I was the villain in the story my parents had spun. Even at work, I felt the weight of it. My phone buzzed constantly with guilt-laden texts. "You'll regret this. We'll never forgive you. Don't bother calling us when you're in trouble." Every message was like a knife twisting deeper. But amid the guilt and fear, a small ember of resolve began to burn. I had spent my entire life chained to their expectations. Every achievement I'd made had been twisted into something I owed them. And now they wanted my future too. I couldn't let them take it. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I blocked their numbers. For the first time in my life, I gave myself silence. No more texts, no more late-night calls, just me and my thoughts. Of course, the peace didn't last long. One evening, as I was leaving work, I spotted them waiting near my car. My father's arms were crossed, his face thunderous. My mother stood beside him, her lips pressed into a thin line. "You think you can ignore us?" my dad growled. "You think blocking us changes anything? We're your parents. You don't get to cut us off." People passing by slowed to watch. My cheeks burned with humiliation. "I don't owe you my life," I shouted, louder than I intended. "I love you, but I won't give up everything I've worked for just because you refuse to take responsibility." For a moment, silence hung in the air. My father's jaw clenched. My mother's eyes brimmed with tears. But whether they were real or manipulative, I couldn't tell. Then my father said something that chilled me to the bone. "If you don't do this willingly, we'll find another way to make you pay." And that was when I realized this wasn't just manipulation anymore. It was war. I couldn't shake my father's words as I drove home that night. "If you don't do this willingly, we'll find another way to make you pay." The threat echoed in my head like a drumbeat, drowning out everything else. For days, I lived on edge. Every sound outside my door made me jump. Every unknown number calling my phone made my stomach twist. I didn't know what another way meant, but I knew my parents well enough to understand they weren't bluffing. The first strike came quietly. One morning, I opened my email to see a message from my bank. "Suspicious activity detected on your account." Panicked, I logged in. My savings account, the one I'd built slowly over years of working late nights and weekends, showed multiple attempts at withdrawals. Thankfully, the bank froze them before any money was lost. But when I asked how someone had even gotten access, the customer service rep mentioned something that made my blood run cold. Someone tried to reset your login information using your personal details. your mother's maiden name, your date of birth, even your childhood address. Classic security questions. I didn't need to guess who it was. Only my parents would have that kind of information. That night, I sat in my darkened apartment, shaking with anger. They weren't just trying to guilt me anymore. They were trying to take from me. The next day, I confronted them. I drove to their house, heart hammering the whole way. They were sitting in the living room when I burst in, my voice trembling with fury. "Did you try to hack my account?" I demanded. My father barely blinked. "We just did what was necessary. You left us no choice." "No choice?" My voice cracked. "You tried to steal from your own daughter. Do you even hear yourselves?" My mother's tone was sharp, defensive. "Don't be dramatic, Sophia. It's still our money. We raised you. Everything you have is because of us. So why shouldn't we use it?" Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up resentment, years of bending under their control came flooding out. "You're wrong," I shouted. "Everything I have is because of me. I worked for it. I sacrificed. You didn't build this life for me. I did. And you know what? I'm done. I'm done letting you manipulate me, guilt me, and control me. You're not going to ruin my future just because you ruined yours." The room went silent. My chest heaved with the force of my words. For the first time, I saw something break in their faces. My mother's lips trembled, though she quickly masked it with anger. My father's jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might crack. "You'll regret this," he finally said, his voice low, dangerous. I didn't stay to hear more. I stormed out, slammed the door, and drove home, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. But I knew this wasn't the end. And I was right. The following week, rumors began spreading through my extended family. My cousin called to tell me that my parents had told everyone I abandoned them, that I refused to care for them, that I was selfish and cold. I could almost hear my mother's voice weaving the story, painting herself as the victim. And it worked. Soon relatives began messaging me, some with disappointment, others with outright hostility. "You should be ashamed. How can you turn your back on your parents? They gave you everything, and this is how you repay them?" Each message was like a stab in the chest, but somewhere beneath the pain was a strange, growing clarity. For so long, I had lived under the illusion that my parents' love was unconditional. But now I saw it for what it truly was. Conditional, transactional, a bargain I never agreed to. And I realized something else too. The only way to free myself was to stop playing their game entirely. That night, I began gathering every document, every piece of evidence, the bank's fraud notice, the threatening texts, even recordings of their confrontations. If they wanted a war, I would be ready. I didn't know exactly how it would end, but one thing was certain. I was no longer their obedient daughter. I was their opponent. Part 4. The counterattack. Once. I made that decision, something inside me shifted. Fear gave way to focus. I was tired of living as their victim, tired of walking on eggshells. If they wanted to destroy my reputation, my finances, my future, then I had to protect myself. The first step was practical. I met with a lawyer. Sitting in her office, I laid everything out. The threats, the attempted bank fraud, the smear campaign within the family. She listened quietly, taking notes, her face unreadable. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "Sophia, what your parents are doing could constitute financial abuse and harassment. You have the right to protect yourself legally. We can send a cease and desist letter, and if they continue, we can escalate to restraining orders." Her words were like oxygen to a drowning person. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't crazy, like someone believed me. The second step was emotional. I reached out to the relatives who had condemned me. One by one, I explained my side of the story. I showed them proof. The bank's fraud notice, screenshots of my parents' messages, even recordings of their threats. Some refused to believe me, too loyal to the image my parents had crafted. But others looked at me with shock and pity. A few even apologized for judging me so quickly. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Their power over me was cracking. Of course, my parents didn't take it well. When the lawyer's letter arrived, my father called me in a fury. You think you can turn lawyers against us? Against your own blood? I held the phone steady, my voice calm. I'm not turning anyone against you. You did this yourselves. Actions have consequences. There was a long silence. Then the line went dead. But instead of fear, I felt strength. For once, I wasn't the one shaking. The final straw came a week later. I got a text from my mother, short and cutting. Congratulations. You've officially destroyed this family. Hope your independence keeps you warm at night. I stared at the screen for a long time. Old me would have cried. Old me would have begged for forgiveness. But now, I just deleted the message. Because I finally understood. I wasn't destroying the family. I was saving myself from it. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in months. Yet deep down, I knew this story wasn't over. Because when people like my parents lose control, they don't just give up. They find new ways to come back, and I had a feeling they weren't finished with me yet. I thought I had finally regained some control over my life. The legal letter had been sent. My savings were secure, and a few family members had come around to my side after seeing the truth. But peace in my world never lasted long. Not with my parents. One Saturday morning, I was sipping coffee by the window when my phone buzzed. It was an email from my landlord. My stomach dropped as I read the words. Due to complaints from your family regarding your financial reliability and character, we will be reviewing your lease agreement. Complaints. From my family. I didn't need to guess who was behind it. My parents had found another way to strike. This time trying to take away the roof over my head. Panic surged through me, but I forced myself to breathe. I had proof. I had already documented their behavior, so I did what I had learned to do. I forwarded the email to my lawyer. Within hours, she responded firmly. They have no legal grounds. Don't worry, I'll handle this. But still, the emotional toll was heavy. I sat on my couch that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how far they would go. What would be enough for them? When would they stop? The answer came the next day, in the most unexpected way. I got a call from my younger cousin Emily, one of the few relatives who had stayed neutral in all of this. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Sophia, I think you need to know something. I overheard your mom talking at Aunt Linda's house. She said they're considering suing you, claiming you owe them money for everything they spent raising you. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My parents, the people who brought me into this world, wanted to drag me to court. Are you sure? I whispered. Yes, Emily said. She sounded serious. She said if you won't pay willingly, they'll force you legally. I thanked her, hung up, and sank into my chair, numb. The absurdity of it all hit me like a wave. Suing me for being raised? For being their child? Was there no limit to their greed? I spent that night pacing my apartment, anger and fear battling inside me. I knew a lawsuit was a long shot, but even the threat of it was exhausting. It meant more legal battles, more money spent, more energy wasted. And then, a thought crept in. A dangerous, liberating thought. What if I stopped playing defense? All this time, I had been reacting to their threats, their manipulations, their lies. But what if instead I went on the offensive? What if I exposed them, not just to the family, but to the world? The idea took root, and by the next morning, it had grown into resolve. I started writing. I poured everything onto paper. Every memory of manipulation, every attempt to control me, every incident of financial abuse. I backed it with evidence, texts, emails, bank notices, recordings, and then I shared it. Not online, not publicly, at least not yet, but with the people who mattered most, my extended family, my parents' friends, even members of their church community. I sent it all in one long, detailed message. The truth. The fallout was immediate. Within hours, my phone lit up with calls and texts, not from people attacking me this time, but from relatives horrified by what they'd learned. Some were angry at my parents, others were in disbelief, but the tide had shifted. The narrative my parents had spun for months was unraveling in front of them. When my father called me that night, his voice was shaking, not with anger this time, but with desperation. How could you do this, Sophia? How could you shame us like this? I held the phone tightly, my voice steady. I didn't shame you. You did that yourselves. I just showed people the truth. There was silence on the line, then the sound of him exhaling sharply. "You've destroyed us," he muttered. "No," I said quietly. I freed myself. For the first time, I hung up on him. But even as I set the phone down, I knew this war wasn't fully over. My parents weren't the kind to surrender easily. And part of me wondered what their next move would be, because people like them, they always had another card to play. I thought I had seen it all. The guilt trips, the threats, the smear campaigns, even the attempt to hack my bank account. But nothing prepared me for the final card my parents decided to play. It started with a knock on my apartment door one rainy evening. I wasn't expecting anyone, so my guard was up immediately. When I opened the door, I froze. Standing there, drenched from the rain, was my mother. Her face was pale, her eyes red as if she had been crying for hours. She looked smaller somehow, fragile in a way I had never seen. "Please, Sophia," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Can I come in?" Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. She entered slowly, clutching her purse as though it were a lifeline. I offered her a towel, but she waved it away, sinking onto my couch like her legs could barely hold her. "I don't know what your father is going to do," she said suddenly, her voice breaking. "He's furious. He says he won't stop until you pay. But I can't watch this anymore. I can't keep fighting you." For a moment, I just stared at her, trying to process her words. Was this real remorse? Or just another act? "You have to understand," she continued, tears streaming down her face. "We're scared. We're getting older. We don't have savings. And when your father looks at you, he doesn't see a daughter. He sees security. He thinks you owe us that, but I don't want to lose you, Sophia." Her words hit me like a stone to the chest. For years, I had longed to hear something like this. Some recognition that I wasn't just a wallet, some admission that I was more than their retirement plan. But another part of me screamed, "Don't fall for it. Don't let her pull you back in." "Mom," I said carefully, my voice tight. "If you really mean that, if you don't want to lose me, then stop. Stop trying to manipulate me. Stop letting Dad control everything. You both have to accept that my life is mine. I don't owe you my future." Her eyes flickered. Guilt, fear, maybe even agreement. But before she could answer, the front door burst open. My father. He stormed in like a thundercloud, his face twisted with rage. "What the hell are you doing here?" He snapped at my mother before turning his fury on me. "And you? How dare you spread lies about us to the family? You think you can humiliate me and get away with it?" I stood my ground even as my heart pounded. "They weren't lies, Dad. They were the truth. And you can't control me anymore." His eyes narrowed, his voice low and venomous. "You're ungrateful. Everything you are, everything you have, it's because of us. And if you think you can cut us off, if you think you can walk away, then you don't deserve to be part of this family." For a moment, the room was silent, except for the rain tapping against the windows. My mother was trembling on the couch, tears streaming down her face. My father loomed in the doorway, waiting for me to back down like I always had. But this time, I didn't. "You're right," I said, my voice steady. "I don't deserve to be part of a family that treats me like property. So if that's what being your daughter means, then maybe I'm better off without it." The words hung in the air like a blade. My father's face turned red, his fists clenching at his sides. For a terrifying second, I thought he might lash out physically. But instead, he spat on the floor, muttered something under his breath, and stormed back out into the rain, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I turned back to my mother. She was sobbing quietly, her shoulders shaking. "Sophia, I don't know what's going to happen now," she whispered. I sat beside her, my heart torn. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to believe she meant what she said. But another part of me knew the truth. As long as she stayed tied to my father, nothing would really change. "I know, Mom," I said softly. "But I can't sacrifice my future anymore. If you want me in your life, it has to be on my terms." She nodded weakly, though I wasn't sure she understood. That night, after she left, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, shaken, but strangely calm. My father had played his last card: rage, intimidation, ultimatums. And I hadn't crumbled. For the first time, I felt like I had finally taken my life back. But deep down, one question lingered like a shadow. Had I just saved myself? Or completely lost my family forever? The night after my father stormed out, I barely slept. Every creak of the apartment made me flinch. Every gust of wind rattling the window felt like a warning. I half expected him to return, pounding on my door, demanding I submit. But the hours passed quietly. The storm outside calmed, though the one inside me still raged. By morning, I knew I couldn't keep living in limbo. This battle with my parents had consumed every part of me, my time, my energy, even my sense of who I was. I needed closure. So I made a decision. I drove back to my parents' house, not to argue this time, not to plead or justify, but to end it, for good. When I walked in, the atmosphere was thick with tension. My father was in his armchair, staring at the television though it was off. My mother hovered in the kitchen, wringing her hands. Neither of them looked surprised to see me. I came to say something, I began, my voice trembling slightly, and I need you both to listen. My father's lip curled. We've heard enough from you. No, I said firmly. You've spoken enough. Now it's my turn. The room went still. My mother looked between us nervously but didn't intervene. I am your daughter. I will always be your daughter. But being your child does not mean I owe you my freedom, my money, or my future. You raised me, yes, and I am grateful for the lessons and sacrifices that made me who I am. But you chose to be parents. That was your responsibility. It is not my debt to repay. My father's face darkened, but I pressed on, my words gathering strength. You've threatened me, tried to steal from me, lied about me to the family, even talked about dragging me to court, all because I refused to let you dictate the rest of my life. That ends now. From this day forward, I will live on my own terms. If you can respect that, then maybe we can have a relationship. But if not, I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. Then this is goodbye. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother broke first. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, Sophia, please, don't say that. But my father's response was ice. Ungrateful, he spat. Everything we did for you, and this is how you repay us? Walking out like some selfish stranger? His words stung. They always had. But this time they didn't break me. I'm not selfish, I said quietly. I'm surviving. I'm choosing myself for once. And if that makes me a stranger to you, then maybe I always was. I turned to leave, my heart pounding. But then I paused. Something inside me demanded one last truth be spoken. You tried to make me your retirement plan, but the truth is you wasted your own future, and now you've lost me too. With that, I walked out. I expected to feel crushed, devastated by the finality of it all. But as I stepped into the sunlight, a strange calm washed over me. For the first time in my life, the weight of their control was gone. In the weeks that followed, my parents tried once more to rally the family against me. But this time it didn't work. Too many people had seen the evidence. Too many had witnessed their cruelty. Their power was crumbling, and they knew it. My mother sent messages now and then, torn between loyalty to my father and love for me. Sometimes I answered, sometimes I didn't. I didn't shut the door on her completely, but I also didn't let her pull me back into the cycle. As for my father, he never reached out again. And maybe that was for the best. Life wasn't magically perfect after that. There were still lonely nights, still moments of guilt where I questioned if I'd done the right thing. But slowly, I started to feel something I hadn't in years. Freedom. I poured my energy into my career, into building the life I wanted. I surrounded myself with friends who treated me like family in ways my real family never had. And with every passing day, the anger and pain turned into something else. Resilience. Because the truth is, sometimes the family you're born into isn't the one meant to carry you through life. Sometimes surviving means letting go, even if it breaks your heart. And as I look back now, I realize choosing myself wasn't selfish. It was the only way I could finally live.